welcome back to that one random podcast. I'm Cypher.
I'm Treble.
And let's get into it.
Let's go.
Treble, what we're going to talk about today?
Stargate.
That's
Let's
right.
Let's do it, man.
And we're not talking about the movie here. Yeah. There has been a conspiracy theory that has been going on for years now. Mm-hmm. It's been around since 2003 when the Iraq war took place. And yes, YouTube, conspiracy theory. We're not saying this is factual. We're just exploring a theory here. So calm down. Yeah. Okay. Could be true. May not be true. We don't know. We're just talking about it.
Yeah.
Entertainment purposes here and all that.
Yeah.
Just jokes. Calm down, YouTube. Yeah. Algorithm. Right. But we're going to talk about Stargate. Yeah. All right. So we're going to get into this a little bit. I know Treble's probably a little bit more knowledgeable with this than I am. I'm not saying much more.
It's been a while since I've looked into it, though.
Yeah, but it's an interesting conspiracy theory. I've got some clips from a guy who did a documentary. I have got the documentary saved on Rumble. It's like 4 hours long, though. That's something he's put together about Anunnaki, Stargates, all that sort of stuff. All this technology, alien technology stuff that we have been talking about a lot recently. But what I'm going to do is play the first clip. And the first clip is literally just explaining what is a Stargate. Mm-hmm. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Stargates, once thought to be the stuff of science fiction, may in fact be remnants of a forgotten reality. Stargates are advanced devices, capable of bending space and time, connecting distant points in the universe with a single step. Known by many names across cultures, a Stargate is said to be a portal, not of human design, but of cosmic origin. Unlike any known technology, they defy physics, offer instant transportation across the stars, and perhaps even through time itself. The idea isn't confined to modern fantasy. It's found in the mythologies of the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Incas, and the Mesopotamians. Again and again, we find stories of gods descending from the sky or returning to the heavens through sacred gateways. These weren't just metaphors. They were memories of encounters with advanced beings and technologies indistinguishable from magic. Hollywood mainstreamed the concept with the 1994 film Stargate and its TV successors.
Yeah. So maybe you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Could be true. I mean, like, they are finding all of these portal-looking megaliths all around the world from this ancient civilization that existed. Like, we know that there was a civilization here, and they did find a lot of these Stargates that are linked with the astrological cosmos.
Yeah.
And there's no real explanation. They're not teaching this in the mainstream. So they're not teaching this in the school. There's a massive cover-up on it. So we don't know too much about it. They're not teaching us about it.
Because the company CERN. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. They're trying to create
I've seen videos where people are putting up, and it could be fake as well, the videos. I'm not saying that they are legit. But they've loads of times where CERN's main base or head office or whatever you want to call it, is it in Switzerland?
It's in Switzerland.
It's in Switzerland, isn't it?
1 mile long.
And then in the sky and even on the ground, people are showing these clips of portals being opened up.
So I don't know whether those videos are real.
I don't know if they're real.
But I have heard that that's what they're trying to do. That they're actually trying to open up a portal to the underworld / stars, and they're trying to summon some of the Egyptian gods to come back. It sounds crazy, but when you realize that some of these organizations may not have, again, YouTube, I'm not saying this is facts in it, but that they might have evil intent, that they are trying to summon some sort of demonic or ancient gods that I don't know whether they have the best interest for the humans is the question.
Well, they were talking about, because remember we talked about the Anunnaki, right?
Yeah.
And the Anunnaki came here from another dimension or wherever it was.
Yeah.
Through portals, right? So are these potentially what they're trying to bring back? Like
That's what they're saying. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Because I mean, the mainstream science is that, oh no, they're just trying to research what would have happened at the Big Bang when we collide these particles. It's a particle collider. They're going to accelerate these particles, smash them into each other, and hopefully recreate the Big Bang so they can study the origins of the universe. Yeah. That's what the mainstream official narrative is. But as you said about bringing in these extra outworldly Anunnaki beings, or I did see it like they were trying to bring in the ancient Egyptian gods Ra and Osiris and all these beings.
Yeah.
Could it be that's what they're doing? I mean, the CERN logo, if you've seen the CERN logo, I don't know if we can get a picture up and how it literally says 666 on it. It's weird stuff and at the highest level, and it's in Switzerland. Very unique place if you know the history of the place. Could be.
So it's an interesting one. That's why I wanted to do this one. And remember, like, they touched on it at the end there, right? They're talking about the Stargate, the movie, right? Which I'm a huge fan of. Trevor watched it recently. He thought it was all right.
The beginning was all right. Halfway through, and
I mean, it's also a generational thing as well. Like, if you brought up in the 90s, you would have loved that movie, and I love that movie.
I can imagine.
I still do to today. I thought it was awesome. But the reason I wanted Trevor to watch it was to see like certain things that they were saying in there. Will it play out in the things that we talk about today in terms of when we talk about Stargates here, the theory of Stargates, the conspiracy theory around this, does that add up to what they were kind of saying in the movie? Would be interesting, because then you're essentially putting a message out there to everyone.
Well, that's what I thought from that movie. From the first half, that's very similar to what actually happened on Earth, with this idea that there was a civilization already here, but then there was these other beings, whether you want to look at them from aliens, extraterrestrials, demons, whatever you want to call them, ancient gods. There's another being with a more advanced technology, and they've come here to settle on this land, mine it, like we saw in the movie. The only thing with the movie, though, second half, and fighting them with guns is just a bit, it's a bit like, all right, okay, he's still American, but the concept. And, the fact that they weren't even covering it. Like, we're talking ancient Egyptian gods and, shape-shifting and the idea of transformation in that sense, I think was subliminal programming to the masses. Like, this is actually what we can do. Yeah. And this is what is under these deep underground military bases that the military are hiding. Indiana Jones and stuff like that. All these movies kind of talk on that similar concept. I do believe that is what is going on in this world, that the mainstream don't want us to know about, but they'll subliminally hint it, or not even subliminal, they'll show you it on the movies, so that we look at it and be like, oh, that was just a science fiction movie. That's not
a cool movie,
that's not actually happening, though.
Kind of like Aliens for years, right? UAPs and UFOs and whatever you want to call them. But now suddenly they're real. Yeah,
exactly. But then likewise, when they do come out as real, people will be more open to the idea because they've seen it in the movie already. They'll be like, oh, no, you know what, that makes sense because I saw that in a movie one time.
Yeah.
So I do think it's all unfolding, and we know that Hollywood like to riddle it, and they like to tell us a little bit what's actually going on.
Yeah.
So could be.
Cool. Next part is really the story of Nebuchadnezzar. So remember, and a lot of people, if you're a movie fan, especially a sci-fi movie fan, you'll remember The Matrix and what was the name of Morpheus' ship? The Nebuchadnezzar, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Right. So this one's going to give a little bit of information around who Nebuchadnezzar was.
Okay.
And it's interesting, and it is important to pay attention to this part, because the next part, I believe, after that, it starts, I think towards the end of this clip, it starts going into Saddam Hussein.
Okay.
It's interesting. It does get interesting, guys. So, hold on to your seats kind of thing, right? But I'm going to play this clip, yeah?
All right.
Cool.
In the Bible, in the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, king of kings, ruler of the greatest empire on earth, commands the construction of a towering golden image, 90 feet tall, a symbol of divine power and of total obedience. He issues a decree. When the music plays, every man, woman, and child shall fall and worship the image, and whoever does not shall be cast into a furnace of blazing fire. But 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refuse. They are brought before the king, and they do not beg. They do not kneel. So Nebuchadnezzar orders the furnace stoked 7 times hotter than normal. The flames are so fierce, they kill the soldiers tasked with throwing the men inside. But what happens next is unexplainable. The 3 men stand unharmed in the center of the fire, and they are not alone. A 4th figure appears beside them. The guards fall back in fear. Nebuchadnezzar himself rises to his feet. He asks, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? But I see 4 unbound walking in the flames, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods, not a metaphor, a presence. Some say it was divine protection. Others say it was a transfer, an activation, a moment where the laws of nature gave way to something far older. a Stargate event. Nebuchadnezzar's obsession with the heavens was not symbolic. He believed the gods came from the stars, and he believed he could bring them back. His inscriptions speak of Marduk not as myth, but as commander, a being who established stations in the sky and opened gates on both sides. References that some scholars believe point to Nibiru, the crossing place. According to the Enuma Elish, Marduk defeated Tiamat and built the architecture of the heavens, anchoring divine points in space, opening channels between realms, and Nebuchadnezzar rebuilt those points, the Ishtar Gate, the processional way, the Tower of Babel. These weren't symbols, they were interfaces. And when Saddam followed in his footsteps, he wasn't rebuilding a city. He was reawakening a system, following the blueprint of a gatekeeper.
How much do you know about Nebuchadnezzar?
Not that much, to be honest. So I wouldn't be able to...
I've heard that name Murdoch before, Murdoch.
Yeah.
Which, isn't that what the old Israelites used to worship and sacrifice babies to?
Maybe. No, that's Moloch.
Was it Moloch?
I don't know, man. There's so many ancient
There's
gods that were demonic. Like, I'm not going to lie. Moloch's one, maybe Murdoch. This is where we've got to fact check, innit?
But it's interesting when he was talking about points of origin and stuff like that, and points like stars being pointed out and stuff like that. When you watch the movie Stargate,
yep,
they're talking about that as well, like how you got to use certain points to calculate the actual destination.
Yep.
But I thought it was a bit interesting because obviously this leads into a little bit into Saddam now, right? So like where Saddam Hussein takes over and then he essentially starts, what he starts doing next is he starts rebuilding the sea that they're referring to in terms of Nebuchadnezzar, what he built, to bring it back.
Just to reignite it.
Reopen the gates portals. In essential and portals. But
maybe because Iraq is Mesopotamia. Iraq is ancient Babylon. That is the land.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, I was always under the impression that all that ancient civilization was still there. And it is still there before the Americans came in and started destroying it.
Because when we talked about the ancient, obviously I refer to ancient Israelites a lot. When they were cast out from Canaan and they went to Babylon, Babylon was literally Iraq. That's where they went.
Basically, yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
And then you got to wonder now, if this conspiracy theory is true, was that hard push? Because we all know, let's be honest, modern day Israel pushed very hard for the invasion of Iraq. Is that the reason why?
No, they didn't even push. They
literally said, do it.
Did it, yeah.
You're doing it. That's that.
Like,
yeah, but in the public eye, they pushed for it hard, didn't they? It was always going to happen. We knew that. Yeah. But I mean, you know what? Let's play clip 3.
But interesting with that one as well, because obviously he mentions planet Nibiru, which is the story of where the Anunnakis came from. That was the Anunnaki planet Nibiru, this 10th planet that is in orbit. Obviously, depends on what system you're looking at it from. But
in our system,
that's what they say. There's another planet that orbits the sun with us, and it's not in it's orbiting just like all the other planets that we have around the sun.
Hold on.
There's
orbiting the sun with us. What is it on par with Earth?
With Earth, like.
So you know this thing about the black sun?
Yeah.
Is that the planet we don't see then in conspiracy theory world?
It really depends on the model that you're looking at it from, isn't it? But the black sun could be a whole nother thing. Like the black sun's like an underworld sun. If you're looking at it from a flat Earth kind of thing as well, it's all theory.
Yeah.
Right. Everything's theory. Even the solar system is actually still a theory.
Yeah.
But planet Nibiru is where the Anunnakis come from, and that was the planet that they needed to heal almost, and that's why they wanted to come to Earth. But it's interesting to see the link that they were using Stargates as their way of entry. Could be. Cool.
Interesting. So we're going to watch the next clip, which is clip 3, yeah? And it's basically what did they find beneath Babylon? And this is really probably where it starts going into Saddam Hussein now, yeah?
Okay, yeah, because
he plays a massive part in this, like, recent history kind of do with it all.
Second, some believe, may have possessed access to these celestial gateways. Millennia later, whispers began to surface that a Stargate, possibly dating back to Nebuchadnezzar's reign, had come into the possession of Saddam Hussein. Saddam was obsessed with Babylon. He saw himself as the modern reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, and he made sure the world knew it. In Babylon, he oversaw extensive reconstruction projects, massive stone structures, ancient ziggurats, and palace ruins brought back to life. Bricks were stamped with his name, just as Nebuchadnezzar had done. Babylon, he declared, was rising again. For Saddam, this wasn't just political theater. He believed he was continuing the legacy of the ancient king. And during these restorations, it's rumored that something was found. Something buried beneath the ziggurats of Sumer. A Stargate. Alongside it, according to sources, were caches of Anunnaki technology, including something resembling a resurrection chamber. A device capable of defying death itself. These were not relics. They were weapons. Tools of immense power, far beyond anything in modern arsenals. Saddam's ambition, some believe, had grown beyond earthly conquest. He now sought to wield the power of the gods to rewrite the destiny of human civilization.
What do you reckon?
Damn.
That was deep, right?
Damn. So, okay, let's unpack that. I do believe, based on evidence, that Iraq has these ancient structures from Anunnaki, ancient Babylon, all that stuff. That is real. They're finding it. There's photographic evidence. These structures are real. The only thing I don't know is whether Saddam was doing this for good or bad, because he's making it sound like Saddam was trying to awaken something and take over and for power and control in a negative way. I don't know. It sounded kind of negative, like he was trying to take over the world almost. However,
might have been though, because you look at Hitler's interest in Antarctica and the dark arts and the occult and things like that.
All right, that's another topic. I don't want to get banned in it.
The search of what was he searching for? The Ark of the Covenant and things like that. And they show that in Indiana Jones.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think all of this stuff, based on evidence, is real.
Yeah.
Stargates being found in Iraq, and as I said, like there's a YouTuber, Bright Inside, and he's been on Joe Rogan, and he was in the military. And he was like, as sad as it was, going over to these war-torn places like Iraq, he felt quite privileged to be able to go and travel, because you can't just go to Iraq these days. But he was like, when he was there, he saw all these ancient structures, ancient megalithic stone structures that, one, you can't really explain with today's technology, and two, show about this lost ancient civilization. And these are photographic evidence that this stuff is there. This stuff is real. Now, if you're saying Saddam Hussein was trying to rebuild it and start the whole system, that's one thing. But the question I have now, though, is, was he doing that for the benefit of the people? Or was he going to use that to
take over the world?
Take over and cuck everybody, if that makes sense. Because the fact that the Americans took him out, but by saying that Saddam was going to take over the world and he was going to fuck everyone over, the Americans taking him out makes them the good guys now. But if I'm looking at it from the perspective... Does it?
Because it just seems with their own occult.
But that's what I'm trying to say. So Americans taking him out,
West,
to me, makes it sound like, well, actually Saddam was probably doing something right. Because let's be real, America take out the leaders that are doing something right.
But could it be also the case of they both have the same plan, which is Saddam wanted to take over the world. The West are like, hey, can't allow that. Our occult won't allow it. So we want to be the ones taking over the world, which is what we're leading into. We've talked about this many times. And it's just two sides, which are just, who may hold evil intent on both sides.
Well, I guess that's, could be.
And one wasn't going to let the other one have it.
Yeah, true. Same with like the Austrian man with the moustache.
Because there might not be no one who's actually in the right here.
True.
Remember, we're just talking a theory here, of course. Yeah, we'll put it out there. But yeah, that's the way I look at it as well. I just think there might have been two sides. Saddam had the same plan that he thought, well, this is great. The West have been backed me for years, and if I have this, now I can take over the world.
Basically, yeah.
And take them as well. And they were like, nah, we're not having that. We want to stay in control, and we've got other plans as well on top of that, so we'll take you out instead.
Could be. Could be as well.
Or there could be a right side or a wrong side. I don't think the West, because I don't believe the West was the right, but I don't think he was either. I don't think
True.
he wasn't the most. He wasn't like Gaddafi, man. Gaddafi loved his people.
True. He was actually a bad.
Gaddafi loved his people.
Yeah,
right, for example, right? He loved his people. He wanted to see his country grow. He wasn't misogynistic towards women. They could have an education. Do you know what I mean? You didn't get that in Iraq. In Iraq, even though people were educated, and I think the girls were as well, but how many times did he gas his own people?
That's true. He was using some real
shit on his own people as well,
tactics.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know there's the whole Turks and there's different Sunnis and all that sort of different type of Iraqis, but
still he was breaching human rights.
Still young people, wasn't it?
He was doing some violations of human rights
himself. So
So I wouldn't be surprised if he did try to take over. That's fucked up. Yeah.
So like it could have been over for all of us a lot sooner, man. But they've obviously put a stop to that when they took him out. But then naturally they must have taken that technology if it existed.
Well, that's the conspiracy in my head, where it was like, okay, 2001, we, without going into too much detail, what happened with because we know who's really orchestrated all of that, and the background, we could do a whole episode on that topic. Then they went over, invaded the Middle East. We know that they were going to do that straight after anyways.
Yeah.
Bam. Take over because it's a war on terror. That's the surface level. And then the conspiracy was that they went over there for the oil, which they probably did. It's like hit two birds with one stone. Let's go get the oil. And that's the mainstream conspiracy theory. No, they went over after 2001 because of the oil. But then there's like a deeper iceberg level, deeper conspiracy, which is actually they were going over for these Stargates and to destroy it, or maybe, as you said, like take the technology for themselves, which I think is a truth to it.
Cool. Let's watch clip 4, yeah?
Fuck.
So clip 4, again, it just continues with what Saddam Hussein found. But this is from this point where this clip's talking about a point in time, which is 1985. And it kind of grows from there. So each clip is showing 1985, 1998, to when the war started, after the war, etc., etc.
How long was Saddam in power? I have not got too much history on Saddam Hussein, to be fair.
For a long time.
Was he really a dictator?
Yeah, for a long time. For a long time, man, ran the show.
Okay.
But yeah, let's get on to clip 4, yeah?
In 1985, Saddam Hussein ordered the restoration of the great ziggurat of Ur. Even today, you can still see and use the massive stairways he had installed. He believed Ur was sacred ground, the place where gods once walked. According to the Sumerians, this was where the gods descended, ruled the earth, taught kings, built cities, and then vanished. The ziggurat was a beacon. During the restoration, workers uncovered sealed chambers, rooms not listed on any archaeological plans. Inside, strange inscriptions, symbols that didn't match Sumerian cuneiform, tools or objects made of unfamiliar alloys, burned glyphs resembling stars, gates, and spirals. The site was locked down. Workers were reassigned. Equipment removed under military escort. Whatever was found, it never saw the light of day again. After the invasion, the U.S. military did something strange. They built a base right on top of the great ziggurat of Ur. Not beside it, not near it, directly on top. The oldest temple in human history turned into a forward operating base. The official story? Logistics, proximity, coincidence. But the soldiers who were stationed there told a different story. They described areas of the site being cordoned off, patrolled, off limits. Archaeologists were removed, locals pushed out, cameras banned, sections of the ziggurat sealed, covered. One soldier said it felt like they weren't guarding a monument. They were guarding something inside it. If Saddam had found something beneath Ur, the U.S. came to take it. But what if the ziggurat was never just a temple? What if it was a machine? What if the ancients didn't just build monuments? They built terminals, interfaces to something larger, a Stargate network, a grid of hidden technology buried beneath layers of myth and empire. Iraq was just one node, but a powerful one, and Saddam knew it. That's why he rebuilt Babylon, had his name carved into every stone, echoed the proclamations of Nebuchadnezzar. He believed Babylon was rising again, that the gate would open, and the world watched him. Ancient kings spoke of gods descending from the sky. Modern powers wage wars over ruins, and buried beneath it all is a secret no one is supposed to find. Maybe it's just myth. Maybe it's buried truth. But whatever was uncovered in the deserts of Iraq, whatever Saddam found beneath the ziggurats and temples, it was enough to rewrite history. And maybe that's why they had to burn it. We were told the Iraq War was about weapons of mass destruction. We were told it was about oil, about terrorism, about freedom. But what if that was just the surface? What if it was about something older, something buried? The tomb of Gilgamesh, a resurrection chamber, a Stargate, locked behind the gates of Babylon. The whispers are always the same. Artifacts taken, sites sealed, records scrubbed, and the world moves on, never asking why. They told us the Anunnaki were just myth. They told us the gods never came. But maybe they were here. Maybe they left something behind, and maybe, just maybe, someone found it. Saddam believed he was chosen to finish what the old kings began. And if that belief was based on something real, then the war wasn't about controlling the future. It was about rewriting the past, or worse, unsealing it. The story isn't over, because the ziggurats are still there, and whatever's sleeping beneath them hasn't woken up yet.
So you just hit the nail on the head a minute ago before we watched that clip where you said that obviously all that stuff about oil, weapons of mass destruction, links to Al Qaeda, even the oil part. Obviously, they would have taken the natural resources of oil as well. We know that, but that's all surface level for the normies out there to believe,
and the conspiracy because the oil was the conspiracy thing. That's a conspiracy that they went there for the oil.
Yeah, so even people like me were saying, see, that's what they went for. We thought that was a conspiracy, but the real conspiracy was he's just explaining it. About, You know what's interesting? I thought about weapons of mass destruction. What if he did have weapons of mass destruction, which were ancient weapons of mass destruction?
Could be. But that was what the mainstream
which he hadn't
saying.
figured out yet how to use.
But that's not what the mainstream narrative was when they referred to weapons of mass destruction.
You know, it was the nuclear.
Nuclear, yeah.
But I'm talking about if we're going to go conspiracy theory with this all.
Yeah, and they're actually telling us the truth.
And he actually had found ancient weapons
of mass destruction,
of ancient technology, but he just hadn't figured out how to use them yet. And they thought before he does, let's go get it.
Could be. But possibly, yeah. But I do believe, and it's not even a belief because it's a theory. We're finding crazy ancient civilization,
Look at the recent founding about pyramids, which we did recently.
Yeah. So they're all uncovering it, and this is what they're telling us now. But what did they know
back in 2003 when the war was happening?
Yep.
Or even before that, actually, they might have known for a while.
For a while,
must have, because you're talking about 2003, 98. Yeah.
I mean, Stargate, the movie came out in 94. So the idea of these ancient portal structures that existed from these ancient civilizations was already decades before that.
And the first Iraq War was what? 90s? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which was Desert Storm. And then 2003, we get
the full on.
We're taking it.
And bombing everything.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. Interesting. I think we'll move on to the next clip, which is, again, a little bit more. Again, this goes into about Saddam Hussein, but this is back in 1999. 1998. This clip where they were referring to, and it's just more information on Saddam, man.
All right, let's do it, because I need to recap my history on Saddam Hussein.
In 1998, during Operation Desert Fox, a mysterious UFO was filmed over Baghdad, captured by CNN cameras. In 2002, a caller to Art Bell's late-night radio show claimed that a UFO had crashed in Iraq 4 years prior. The US, the caller said, feared Saddam was reverse engineering alien technology. He claimed the military was desperately looking for a public pretext to invade. Before Saddam could unlock the secrets of zero-point energy, gravitational weapons, and interstellar travel. This, the caller warned, is Iraq's Roswell. In the 1950s, archaeologists from Cambridge and the University of Chicago excavated ancient Sumerian ruins near the Little Zab River. In a place called Zazi, deep in Kurdish territory, they uncovered Neolithic sites dating back to 10,000 BC. Local legends spoke of star beings, giant scorpions guarding palaces, and underground temples sealed by the gods.
So, basically saying a spacecraft was seen over Iraq, and he was pretty much close to unlocking this technology. Now they were devising a reason why they needed to invade, in a nutshell. And that was 98.
Yeah. I mean, we know UAPs have been going around for donkey years before that.
Well, we know what happened in 2001.
But yeah.
And we can't say much about our theory on this, which is quite a lot of people's theory as well. But a certain demographic caused a certain thing to take place in 2001. We're just going to say that, which then led to the invasion of the Middle East, right?
It was all orchestrated by said demographic and their elite agency, their elite agents.
And do you know what I mean? And so you think about it, that would have been 3 years after this incident had taken place.
Well, yeah,
and then moved pretty fast.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, things are happening in, 3 years doesn't sound like a short time, but that's a really short time for things to
progress like that quickly.
I mean, you think about what happened.
And then 2 years on the back. 2 years on the back of that.
Yeah,
5 years total. Wow.
This
is, remember, because again, conspiracy theory, we're just throwing out ideas out there. YouTube,
theory.
Chill out, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's a bit of fun, entertainment purposes only. Yeah. And remember, if you're listening, hit the subscribe button. If you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, smash that like button. Yeah. Hit the notification bell. When you hit the notification bell, select all. Yeah. Because what YouTube will do, it will automatically set it to personalize and you won't get all our notifications. So hit all. Yeah. But dude, this is deep though.
This is deep. And if that picture is real, if saying from a CNN camera, like, damn. And no one's really talking about that sighting. I haven't heard too much about the sighting of a UFO over Iraq.
I never heard that. No one even, do you know what? I didn't even hear it as a conspiracy back then. So how hush-hush was that kept?
That's what I mean, yeah.
And you tell me CNN picked it up, but now that information was never put out there. But now we're talking about UAPs and UFOs, whatever you want to call them, like, they're planes in the sky.
Yeah, literally. They talk about it like so casually every day.
But notice that those congressional hearings or whatever they call them, where they had the whistleblowers, the ex-military people there and all that sort of stuff, which your brother was really into.
Really into it, yeah.
Yeah. I guarantee you they didn't bring this up.
Nah, you see, this is the thing. I'm going to ask him when the next scene, we're like, did you know about this? And if not, after all that research,
I'd be interested to know what he thinks and what he knows.
He was watching it non-stop, like, yo, this is what's going on. Look at what happened in Brazil and all of these countries. But he never mentioned Iraq. So it's possible.
All right,
and even John Lennon saw them over in New York, like, before he died. He was on fucking camera saying, I just saw some UFOs over in New York.
Yeah, but they would have labelled him as on freaking weed or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what they would have labelled him as. Let's be real.
And then he got 5 bullets into his back, though.
True. On the back of a lot of things he was saying.
True, yeah, he was trying to fight for peace. Which you just can't do.
It's not allowed.
You just can't do that.
All right. Let's move on to clip 6 again, yeah? Again, this is now going to start talking about from the point of 2003 and the actual invasion.
Okay.
Yeah?
In 2003, the world watched as American forces rolled into Iraq. Officially, it was about weapons of mass destruction, about preventing terrorism, about democracy. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if buried beneath the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, beneath the cradle of civilization itself, was something far more dangerous? Dr. Michael Salla was one of the first to suggest that the Iraq War may have had another hidden objective: to gain control over an ancient Stargate. The idea seems ripped from science fiction. Salla's theory draws on ancient Sumerian texts, Babylonian myths, and declassified government testimony from whistleblowers who claim the U.S. military has long been aware of portal technology left behind by non-human intelligences. According to these accounts, Iraq was once the domain of the Anunnaki, extraterrestrial beings who either created or heavily influenced early human civilization. The site in question? Uruk, one of the first major cities in human history. Some claim the U.S. invasion targeted the ancient city of Ur, the ziggurat of Ur, and even the museum in Baghdad, which was looted within days of the invasion. Among the stolen or seized artifacts were tablets, cylinder seals, and relics inscribed with strange symbology, many tied directly to the myths of the Anunnaki and the gates of the gods. Multiple independent sources, some cited by Salla, others echoed in classified testimony and even remote viewing sessions, claim the U.S. military secured a buried device beneath Iraqi soil, a portal, a Stargate said to be dormant but recoverable, a device that allowed travel between worlds or dimensions. According to Salla and those aligned with this theory, the U.S. government feared that Saddam Hussein had either discovered this artifact or was attempting to activate it.
Okay, before we start getting into this clip, who was Dr. Michael Salla? So we've got obviously on the screen for you guys to pause and read if you want to, but just go through it.
So Dr. Michael Salla is a political scientist known for his work in exopolitics, which is the study of political implications of extraterrestrial life. So it's a very deep topic, because I've never heard of exopolitics. It's not something that they're teaching at university. If I knew that this was something that you could learn at university, I might have actually gone to the bloody place.
Extraterrestrial politics is basically that.
Political implications of what would the political scene do with the existence of extraterrestrial life?
Right.
Now, what does that mean if extraterrestrial life was existed or found?
So if aliens invaded, what would we do?
What would we do? Apparently, there's a whole study called exopolitics, which is, what would happen. And Dr. Michael Salla...
All I'm going to say to everyone, yes, conspiracy theory, we're having a bit of fun with this, but I'm just going to say to everyone, why would you need that in place? Just ask yourself that question.
Possible.
To the people out there. Just all I've got to say is, why would you need that in place where you must have credentials, study, degrees, and can you do a degree in that?
Well, this is the thing. I've never heard about exopolitics in...
Because you would have jumped straight in. I would have jumped straight into it, bruv.
But he was a political scientist. He's got a PhD in government from the University of Queensland. He's got a master's in philosophy. And he was an assistant professor at the School of International Service. He was a researcher in resident at the Center for Global Peace. He was a faculty member at the Department for Political Science and a faculty member at the Elliott School of International Affairs. He's authored 70 articles.
So he's very much someone who, because you said he's got a degree in, was it sociology or what? Philosophy
and government.
Has he got anything in psychology or anything like that? And the reason I'm asking this, guys, is you got to think about it, if you were to come into contact with aliens, all right, and you needed a team to go in there and communicate with these guys, you would probably want people who have got understanding of.
So exopolitics is not a formally recognized academic degree. So this is
no. But I'm saying the things that he does do, like he has got academic qualifications in, they would look at that and say, well, that might be the perfect person to put into this department.
So he was the founder of it. He was the, he was the founder of the Exopolitics Institute. So he was the guy who said, we need to create an institution that is talking about this and researching this. Obviously, we're talking mid-1900s he was born. So it is, in early 2000s, which coincides with... with this, but they don't recognize it as a real science because it's fringe science, isn't it? It's more.
So was he working? So who was he working for? Who's he? Did he work for any particular government?
Let's see.
Did he advise any governments? Why you made that face for just now?
It takes time, isn't it?
Like, you have to bear with us for a second.
He's not officially worked for or served as an advisor to any government. However, in 2016, he was nominated by a third party to be an advisor to the incoming Trump administration.
Ah,
So that's
interesting.
Yeah, back in 2016. But in his academic career, he did hold positions at institutions such as the Australian National University. So he's not really worked with governments directly, but he has worked with a lot of universities. And he received grants from organizations like the United States Institute of Peace.
So this is a guy who's started, obviously, this department or whatever you want to call it, and then basically turned around and said, well, there was more to the Iraq war than meets the eye.
Basically, yeah.
Interesting.
And he's linking it with the extraterrestrial history. Because we can't deny that, this is biblical stuff at the moment.
Yeah, no, but like I'm saying, like, because they reference, obviously, he's literally, in a sense, saying that, obviously, that was the center point for the Anunnaki.
Yep.
And that's why they went to war with Iraq, because they wanted control or gain control of this ancient technology that he clearly had his hands on.
And or existed in that location.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting stuff.
It's interesting stuff. I'll probably have to watch the whole 4-hour documentary now to kind of really get a real in-depth understanding of it all. But it's pretty interesting when you think about it. I keep going back to, if we had this debate in 2003, I'd be like, I'd probably turn around and say, even as someone who was labeled a conspiracy theorist, would probably say you're nuts now, man. Now you go too far. Like, no one's going to believe that. Yeah, it's like when David Icke starts talking about reptilian people back then. When I started listening to him, and I was like, this is where you lose me, David. Yeah. Not saying, but then look, years later, you and I have done our first episode, which was Rogan and Tucker Carlson, which got banned here on YouTube.
Banned.
Yeah, but it's on Rumble, it's on Spotify. Go check it out.
You have to, guys.
All right, we went deep into that. Yeah, where Tucker Carlson starts talking about UFOs, that these UFOs are real, the UAPs are real, they're coming from, I've spoken to a government connect who's told me that they're coming from the sea, not from the skies, and all that sort of stuff that they were talking about, which Joe Rogan nicely had it all pulled down, so there must have been something behind it.
So that's
because of the things we were saying, things we were saying on the back of that, of what information Tucker Carlson was putting out there. And now you look at all the sightings; it's gone quiet now suddenly.
Yeah, but this is that.
And that's why I thought that's why I was like, this got to be that had to be that was a distraction clearly or something. But the fact is that it's all out there in your face now, and they've been saying this for years because I remember Sky reported it during COVID or just before COVID. They reported about the Pentagon putting information out, putting video footage out there of UAPs when fighter pilots were up in the sky and videoing this stuff, and they're all that stuff was coming out. So now we're here sitting there talking about this Stargate thing. It's not too far-fetched to be thinking, hey, there might be some truth behind this. Not saying there is.
I think
but there might.
Yeah, you're right. For YouTube's sake,
I'm not saying there is. But there could be. It's not far-fetched to think like this anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
No, for sure. I don't think it's far-fetched at all. But, as I said, I'm a full-on flat earth, don't even trust the globe anymore. So my perspective of what reality is and the history that they've taught us not being true makes sense to me. That I can't believe anything that they're telling us on the mainstream, anything that I've learned through the history books in school.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing all these alternative theories that link each other in. So, what we're talking about Babylon and biblical stuff, and now we're talking about Stargate and Anunnakis and ancient Sumerian. It all starts to fit like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's all starting to make a lot more sense on a bigger picture.
Because you know what? Have you ever watched Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
The first one?
Yeah. And it could do with a recap. It's been a while. But yeah.
But they used an ancient Sumerian god, I think, in that as well.
Did they? Oh, I need to rewatch it.
You need to go back and watch that.
Rewatch it.
It's a fun film to watch anyway, so go back and watch it. But I'm pretty sure that Gozer, who I believe was the god, the female. Do you remember, like, the skinny with the spiked up hair kind of thing? That god.
Yeah.
I think that was Gozer, and Gozer were apparently ancient Sumerian.
They're telling us. They tell us. That's how they do it.
And there's loads of symbology in all of that movie, man.
For sure.
In those movies.
For sure. That's
movies.
a cult classic movie, for sure.
All right, let's move on to the next clip. This one's actually to do with the Vatican and your boys at NASA.
Ah, you see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
When the Vatican's Advanced Technology Telescope and the large binocular telescope were being built, why did the indigenous peoples of Arizona, especially the San Carlos Apaches, why did they join environmentalists in filing dozens of lawsuits before a federal appeals court to try to stop the construction of the observations on Mount Graham? The project ultimately prevailed in favor of the Vatican and NASA after an act by the United States Congress ordered it to be done. But the question remained in our mind, why had the tribal communities fought so diligently against the construction of telescopes atop that mountain? Mount Graham is considered one of the 4 holiest mountains in the world for the Apache and is considered sacred to all of the region's native peoples, and it is so because it is what we might call a Stargate. In their mythos, a portal through which the star people have come since the dawn of time. And once we understood that fact, our suspicions as to why the Vatican and NASA had chosen that mountain in particular, even being willing to face a prolonged legal battle to build these telescopes on Mount Graham, including the largest binocular telescope in the world where the Lucifer device is kept, why would they have gone to all of that trouble? Why not just go to another mountain range and find basically the same height, the same environmental conditions? Why did it have to be that mountain? Now, we came to learn another thing, and that is that the San Carlos Apache have these preserved ancient tales concerning Mount Graham and that geography, including stories very similar to biblical chronology. These legends involve a creator, a deceiving dragon that follows, an epic flood, and even a race of giants known as the Jindupids, who were judged and destroyed by God. According to the legend, a race of Indians called the Tartans lived in the valley between Tucson and Phoenix. These were just peaceful farmers, and they prospered until one day they were invaded by the Jindupids, described as Goliaths, who were so huge they used tree limbs for toothpicks. Well, these Nephilim were led by this massive man they call Evil Ken, who allegedly came from the northeast and were headed south to their home beyond the Gulf of Baja. These giants nearly wiped out the Tartans before they ran and hid themselves underground and in the mountains and prayed to Father Sun, who then threw this huge fireball that came down to the earth, seared the monstrous Nephilim into the scorched mountain rock, and wiped them out. Now, elements of that tale are obviously mythological, but it has a remarkable thematic coherence with Genesis chapter 6. The Apache creation myth is also interesting in this regard, as a particular version involves what they call the one who lives above, who descended down over the mountain in a flying disc at the start of creation. Their myth begins, in the beginning, nothing existed, no earth, no sky, no sun, no moon, only darkness was everywhere. And then the legend starts, before noting that suddenly from the darkness emerged a disc. One side of it was yellow, the other side of it was white. It appeared suspended in midair, and within the disc sat a bearded man, the Creator, the one who lives above. Now, besides this creator who rides in a heavenly disc, there's a dragon with the power of speech that turns up, bargaining with mankind, as well as supernatural gateways associated with mountains through which spirit beings have and can come. So suffice it to say that these ancient native ideas involving flying discs, flying creators, spirit guides, even owls and a talking dragon or a great serpent, and supernatural gateways tied to mountain ranges. This is something that began long before the Vatican cast its eyes on Mount Graham. Think how much these legends mirror what the Bible teaches, including the idea that mountaintops or high towers were often depicted as places where doorways into the supernatural could be opened. For instance, Nimrod of biblical fame sets out to build a tower whose top will reach into heaven, Genesis 11:4 says. This was the infamous Tower of Babel, and Nimrod was designing it so that the top of it would extend into Shamayim, heaven, the dwelling place of God. The Jewish Encyclopedia confirms several historical records that Nimrod, who it establishes was also identified by various ancient cultures as Osiris, Orion, Apollo, Gilgamesh, that he had built the Tower of Babel specifically to ascend into the presence of God, literally walk onto a high place and enter heaven is really not as far-fetched as it sounds. There are numerous records, including in the Bible, that appear to substantiate the idea that heaven can be attained on high towers or mountainous locations. So think about Moses meeting with God on Sinai. Jesus returning atop the Mount of Olives, the 200 watchers that descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and other examples, including Jacob's ladder.
All right, wow.
Damn,
so
that was deep.
There was a lot of information in there. We need to unpack this, man, because that was deep. Like, first of all, Vatican and NASA wanting that mountain.
Same company. Yeah, it's always been. I mean, like, this is why I like to talk about Flat Earth a lot, because it kind of covers all of this. Vatican, NASA, the United States government, they're all one entity at the highest level. And like you said, the biggest telescope, the biggest physical telescope, because now they're using like laser technology telescopes, whatever, but like the biggest physical telescope is in the Vatican, and they've called it Lucifer. And
Which he mentioned.
He said that. And now, obviously, the Vatican wanted to put another telescope on a mountain, which is being, rejected by the local indigenous tribes over there. Yeah. And they're saying that it has spiritual connection, which is totally plausible. And like you said, it's linked now into the ancient scriptures, the ancient mythology. In quotations, they call it mythology, but maybe this is a recorded history of a time that existed on Earth. And like you said, like, it's all biblical. And this is why I came to conversations with Christians, and they're like, oh no, this stuff didn't, and they're very reluctant to accept this as fact. They're still side with the science, like, oh no, it's just a mythology, it's a metaphor, it's a parallel to the subconscious or whatever. But what if this was actual history of a lost civilization, of a lost time, a forgotten time, with biblical gods and giants and Nephilims and dragons and stuff?
Yeah, but I think, what the thing is though, every religion talks about this sort of mythology, right? If you want to call it that, right? And we will for the sake of YouTube.
Yeah, just the theory, guys. Keep it.
All right. But every religion talks about, all right, now I haven't bought into Flat Earth, as you know, completely. I'm not against the idea, but I'm just not bought into it. But every religion does mention Flat Earth. Yeah, every religion in some way or another kind of connects to an Anunnaki story as well.
Yep.
Every religion talks about biblical floods or some form of destruction.
Cataclysmic events.
Yeah, that wipes out the human race, and anything alive on it, like the Noah story. Yeah, every religion touches
the giants,
all this sort of stuff. So it's like, and they're worlds apart in terms of points of history where those religions have come along.
And geographical locations are miles away.
So you look at pyramids, they're all over the world.
Yep.
It's not just Egypt.
No.
You got the Mayan pyramids, you got potentially one in Antarctica.
Loads in China.
Loads in China. Do you know what I mean? You've got them everywhere.
Yep.
So it's not clearly, it wasn't just an Egyptian form of technology or building.
No.
It was something that you found everywhere. So it kind of puts a lot of weight behind, well, how can all these civilizations that were apart in history and different sides of the world and hadn't seen each other using the same technology, the same building structures and stuff like that? So it gives it a bit of weight. So we're just having a bit of fun with this, but it's interesting what he was covering off there. But yeah, I think definitely when he started talking about the biblical things, that fucking blew my brains out. I was like, shit, man, that's another person now saying, that's another civilization or another culture, which are the Indians, the natives of America, who are saying the same thing as Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, ancient religions and civilizations. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy, man.
I think so. I think it's truth. Is the theory I like the most.
Yeah, that's why I'm turned on by this. Yeah. Like seeing these clips. I got a lot of these clips off TikTok, but if you want to watch the whole 4 hour, it's like 4.5 hours long, go over to Rumble and just type in the Anunnaki connection. If this got your piqued your interest, and you want to know more, go and check out that whole. I haven't watched it all yet. Neither has Treble. It is 4 hours complete.
I'm gonna get there though, because
I'm gonna get there too as well, because it's definitely piqued my interest massively to go deeper with this, especially the recent events, which are recent, 2003, Saddam Hussein, all that stuff, Babylon, Iraq.
It's still ongoing. This is the thing. Like we're talking about civilizations from 10,000 years ago, maybe even longer. And we're talking about incidents 20 years ago and possibly up till this day. And
that's still going on. Well, we've got pyramids. They found new information about pyramids now.
So to this date, and like what we said at the beginning of the episode about CERN and what they're doing and other research.
We talked about on our very first episode here, the Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan thing about UAPs.
Yeah, it's all linked and it's all creating a bigger picture that they're trying to cover up. And I think they're struggling to cover it up now. When I mean I'm talking about the elites and the social, the media and all that, and they're trying to cover it up. And I think they're struggling to because the information is just out there, with the internet, they can't really control it. So now they're just flooding us with so much distractions.
You can't keep up.
Can't keep up.
I mean, come on, look at our group chat with Waz.
Yeah.
And like, you even find it hard to keep up.
I can't even.
Me and Waz are basically mainly doing all the debating because we're on two different sides of that argument. But like, even you said, like, damn, man, I can't keep up with you boys. What you're talking about? Yeah. Because we're just firing things out there left, right, and center, and that's just on one topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just think about all the other topics that are going on at the moment, and then you're trying to get your head around this sort of stuff.
That's what I mean. If we didn't do a podcast today on this, this would have been more background information in my head from stuff I looked at years ago and not really resurfaced again because it's not coming up in my feeds anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but
there's a lot
coming out.
There's a lot of stuff on YouTube that 15 years ago was all out there.
Yep.
And they took it. Well, that's when I actually even first heard of Flat Earth as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't go deep into it. Yeah. I meant to revisit it, but never did. But then 10 years down the line, well, I kind of like switched off for a good, probably till up to COVID. I thought it is what it is. If it's going to happen, what am I supposed to do about it? And then when COVID happened, I started getting back into all this sort of stuff.
You have to, though. Yeah, it's a wake-up call.
And it was a wake-up call for me. I was like, you shouldn't have switched off because there was a lot of things I missed. Do you get it?
Yeah.
But then it's when COVID happened, and that's when I was like, oh, shit. There was a certain person who kind of talked about something a few years ago. I can't go into detail into it. I'd have to play a clip of it, but like that will get us probably in trouble with YouTube, and I don't want to do that.
Wait, give it a hint though.
Gaddafi said something in 2009, didn't it? So,
what, in the UN?
Yeah, don't say it, because we'll probably get pulled for it. Yeah. But then I was like, how did you forget that, dude? Like,
that's all planned. It's all written long before writing was even a thing.
But yeah, it's insane. Like the things that he was breaking down in that clip that we just watched was mad. But definitely going to get more into that. I'm definitely going to watch that whole documentary, man. That's just mad. There'll be more things in there we'll be able to break down because we've really touched on it. We've done a little bit around the pyramids of Anunnaki and we've even done where we've talked about religion, faith, and again talked about the Anunnaki. And now we're talking about them again with the Stargate situation. Definitely something I want to get more into.
Yeah.
But definitely need to get more information.
We're growing. We're learning.
Yeah, we'll get there. But look, we got another clip. This is the last one. All right. And this one is around a Stargate that was found in Sudan by a British Army colonel in 1928.
Damn.
All right, let's play that clip, man.
He found this ring, a big ring, and didn't know what it was, but saw this strange writing on, these strange symbols on this ring. So then he and another person walked through it to look at the other side, and lo and behold, they got into some other sphere, as if they walked into another dimension.
And this ring, so the audience knows, we're talking like what diameter?
It's probably 25 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And
the sphere was even larger than that.
Oh, as they walked into it, it was like a new world. Mm-hmm. As he explained in his diary, it was like a new world. And he couldn't figure out how he got from one place, an enclosed sarcophagus almost, into this open area.
Is this a portal of some sort?
Well, today we would call it a portal or a Stargate. I think we would refer to it today as a Stargate. But back in those days, in 1928,
they didn't know.
It wasn't. No, they didn't know what it was. But when he walked into it, it was as if he was in a new world. It was an open area, plush pastures. He sees a river, which he assumed to be the Nile, and he sees almost a movie occurring, showing people building these pyramids. And he's in there, he thinks, for maybe an hour, but when he comes out, he's been there for 3 days. He's been for over 72 hours because the crew that he came with were scared. They got out of that tunnel and got out into the open because they thought that they ended up on some other side.
Or it swallowed them up.
Or swallowed them up. And so, but 3 days later, they come back out.
How many of the team went with him?
Only two.
Only two.
But there was 6 other team members, 8 total. And so those other 6 left, but they stayed up in the area outside where they had an encampment. And eventually, 3 days later, the colonel and his assistant comes back out, and he talks of this new world that they found, and that he knows now how these pyramids were built. He knows where they are located. He knows that there's tunnels under each one of them, and he sees these strange-looking beings, and this is in his diary, strange-looking beings that are probably not from Earth. Now, he says this in his diary, and this is 1928.
Right.
So then decide to make another camp. They had to go get supplies to come back because they only had enough supplies for, a few days or a week or something like that. But they did, and they brought more people back. This time they brought back some local people. And they tried to explain through an interpreter to these local people what they had found. And these local people didn't want any part of going down there. They seemed to be aware of maybe the rumors or the legends about this particular tunnel. But the colonel he wasn't afraid to go back.
Right.
So he went back with another person, a different person, not the same that he went the first time. So they go down there. This time they're prepared. They have supplies, they have water, they have things, because although they saw water going through there, they didn't know if they should drink it or not. Anyways, they walk through. This time he's closer to where they're building a pyramid. He sees these strange things in the sky that are flying around with these large bricks. He's stumped. He can't understand what these things are that are flying, although during that time period there were airplanes, conventional airplanes, single engine airplanes, and in the 1920s we had them during World War I. But they didn't look like any of those type of aircrafts. And remember, he's a British colonel, and he'd been through war, and he knew airplanes. He'd been through World War I, but he couldn't understand and couldn't rationalize what these other things were.
And they're holding these giant blocks.
Right. And it's like a movie. He sees these things happening, and he watches this pyramid being built. But he also sees this underground area where there's tunnels and there are vast amount of people working in certain tasks down there. Some people are baking, some people are doing some kind of a work, like a painting or a carpentry work, and then some are lying down on what he refers to as a conveyor belt. And these bodies are like moving in to this tunnel. So he's down there for about a week, he's estimating. When he comes out, now he has a story to tell. He documents all this in his diary.
If he was a week down there, when he got back, was he gone for 4 weeks? Did he say
no,
anything?
he came back and it was a week missing,
Oh, okay.
missing time for a week. And then he goes back, eventually gets back to the UK, and he tells his story to a society. And none of them believe him. They didn't believe him.
not.
They didn't believe a word he said.
Right.
Even though he had two witnesses, because he brought two different people, took two different people in there. So they said, no, we don't believe you. This is impossible. What you say is not feasible. But he keeps this. Now, jump ahead to 1940.
Okay, so if you're enjoying the episode so far, remember hit, or should I say, smash that like button, subscribe to That One Random Podcast, hit the notification bell. When you hit the notification bell, set it to all. YouTube will automatically set it to personalized, which means you will not get all our notifications. But if you set it to all, you will get every notification. Damn, that was deep.
Damn, I want to know what else he was going to say.
I know, I didn't have the rest of the clip.
It's 1940, that's what, we're going into World War II, and what we've done an episode on Admiral Byrd as well,
Yeah.
where he talks about flying into another world and seeing beings, seeing vast fauna, forests and trees and rivers, and of course, crafts, these UFO spaceships flying around the area, similar to what this guy is saying, the colonel. So again, another high level. And again, Admiral Byrd also came back and said
he spoke to him.
Yeah, and but when he came back to the humans, they all said,
"You're nuts."
You're nuts." Yeah, and obviously he says Eisenhower kind of told him, "Don't talk about this.
Yeah,
you shut your mouth." Yeah. So that's crazy. That's crazy. But you know what? So he's saying he went into a Stargate and he went into another dimension of a plane of existence, which is, it could be. I mean, like, look, we've had stories about this underworld.
Talk about pyramids again.
Yeah.
Building of pyramids, which clearly had more than a purpose of just burying dead pharaohs into.
Well, that's already. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that people still believe. I mean, it's been disproven that that's a tomb for a pharaoh. But you know, I was talking to, especially like in my mom's generation with her friends. I was talking to some of her friends, and they're like, yeah, it's the tomb of Khufu. And I was like, it's been already disproven that it's not. But the mainstream history kind of is already indoctrinated the masses to say that was a burial.
Because you learn a lot of that stuff when you're a kid, innit? Yeah. And then you don't really go deep into it as you get older. Unless you're curious, unless you're like curious like you and me, and we start going deeper and deeper and deeper into shit, you just accept whatever you were taught, and that was it. And that's what you run with. But that was another interesting story. But I was going to say, like, you already touched on it. I was going to touch on Admiral Byrd as well. And this is a colonel now telling you, a British colonel telling you, well, you know, I went through a Stargate, essentially, and saw a completely different world.
Yep.
I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Some of these stories that we keep hearing, but obviously everything's a conspiracy theory.
This world, is this what we're talking about when we refer to the hidden lands in Antarctica? Is this what we're talking about when, you know, on a flat Earth model, when we're talking about these outer lands? Or is this an interdimensional space that's operating on on this plane of existence that's like overlapping in a weird way?
Yeah.
It's really weird stuff. But the more I hear it, you know, I've not heard of Colonel Blumenfield like before, so that's like,
that was new to me.
Opened it up again, you know, just almost reaffirming what I already kind of understood. But it's deep. It's deep to hear it again in a different perspective.
All of it's deep, man. It's mad, isn't it? It's just...
And it kind of, you know, and he said like 1940, that's when obviously the bad man from Austria with the funny moustache kind of was doing his thing. And he also talks about these beings.
No, like I said earlier on in the show, I said I touched on Hitler and
are we allowed to use the word hate word?
okay, everyone else uses it. I'm using it. I'm not bigging him up or anything. I'm just saying that the man was curious and interested in the occult.
Yeah,
and the Nazis did travel to Antarctica.
Straight up.
So, and let's be honest, the one thing, you can say what you want about the Nazis, and we know historically about the Nazis and what they were all about, but at the same time, they were very advanced with their technology.
Pioneers.
They didn't actually have the technology, but they had a lot of plans and blueprints put in place for technology that they were working on to bring to life. Hence why Operation Paperclip was a real thing, man. What happened after World War II? The US recruited a lot of the science officers from the Nazi regime and brought them over to the States.
Yeah, and founded corporations like NASA.
And who founded it, though? It was a Nazi. It was a Nazi.
Werner von Braun, former head of NASA, was a former Nazi scientist. And what we talked about in the previous clip about NASA and the Vatican teaming up. So you're saying that So you're saying the Vatican teamed up with Nazi scientists? It's crazy, I was listening to Eddie Bravo talk about it from a flat earth perspective, and he's like, yo, this is shit straight out of a comic book. Like, this is straight up of like a Marvel film. Captain America with Hydra and all of that stuff? This is the same thing.
But I said that when I watched, when we watched Captain America.
Yeah.
And this is the time when Captain America came out, this was kind of the time when I switched off. I wasn't full on like what I'm telling you about, which I spoke about earlier on. And I went to watch it with my mates. But obviously my mates are normies. I can't sit there and go, bro, this is just, I can see what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is predictive programming as well.
Straight up.
Hydra, it all made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I thought I could see it already, because your brain's open. Even if you switch off,
you can't see it.
Yeah. The thing is, even if you stop, and when I mean switch off, I'm not no longer, or I'm not doing it as much as I did before, which is going into things. I'm just watching TV as normal. But even then, you're still saying, oh, you've seen this, you've seen that, you're reading the signs and still connecting the dots.
Once your mind's open.
Once your brain's open, you can't, you can't shut it.
The door's unlocked.
But even Joe Rogan can't deny, because he's had the author of the book, I forgot her name now. I've actually got a book, an ebook version of it. I haven't read it yet, about Operation Paperclip. And even he was quizzing and bought into it completely. So it's like, but then
Joe Rogan getting into the Joe Rogan side of it, because like when we talk about controlled opposition, this is
the guy that shuts down Eddie Bravo every time Eddie Bravo opens his mouth.
But he knows it, and Eddie Bravo even said, "Joe, we used to watch all of these science shows. You know everything I'm saying to you. So why do you come here on this podcast and deny it?" And then he's just like, "Eddie, you got to stop. You got to stop." But he's like, "But Joe, we used to sit at home at my place, at your place, watching these documentaries.
He used to do podcasts from his desk with all his mates on."
Deny the moon landing so heavily. We got half an hour's worth of footage of you denying the moon landing, and then all of a sudden,
you're now
all for it. Like, come on, man.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
But it's all linked. We're going to get into that one.
You're talking about 1928, 1940, then 20 years after that, 1969, they go to the moon.
All I'm going to say with that moon landing, right? The conspiracy is that they got a Hollywood director, to come in to shoot that, right? And that was Stanley Kubrick, who did Eyes Wide Shut, who did
2001:
Clockwork Orange, I think he did as well.
Orange, Shining,
2001,
Space Odyssey,
which I watched recently,
which is a year before the official moon landing.
That film's not particularly great in terms of script and stuff, but if you look at the actual cinematography,
it's a masterpiece.
It's amazing, man. And you think with someone, a director who could produce that. And he made it very
more believable than the actual moon landing. I can't lie.
He did in that film. It did.
Landing, yeah.
So it's like, if you can do that for a movie,
who's to say what you see on the small little TV?
Because these are just conspiracy theories. Don't take us serious,
guys.
We're just having a laugh and a joke. YouTube, relax.
Just a joke.
Yeah. That's why I put that sign at the beginning. This is for entertainment purposes only.
Come on, guys.
But look, all of that was really interesting. I think we need to obviously watch the 4-hour documentary.
Yeah, and then we'll come back to this topic.
And definitely come back to this topic, because there's more to clearly chop up and kind of like unpack and chop it up and really start getting deep into it, because it's interesting, man. It's mad.
We connected a lot of dots. And like Saddam Hussein, what? Because I already had that deeper level of picture with Iraq being something to do with the ancient civilizations, but to say Saddam Hussein was doing it, like, oh man.
Yeah, but there's your little mate from back in the 1940s with the little moustache that you keep calling.
Yeah.
Who was also in that region of the world searching out certain artifacts as well. Let's be real about that too. Like that was no, you think what you saw in Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you think that was just movie story?
Yeah, just a great script.
No, they got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
So look, I thought that was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, remember what I said, smash the like button. Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, hit the notification bells. When you hit the notification bell, hit that. Make sure you set it to all. Yeah, YouTube, they do this on purpose. They will automatically set it to personalized, or they won't even they'll turn off your notifications even when you subscribe to a certain channel, especially our channel. So make sure you set it to all so you can get all notifications. Yeah. Obviously, we're putting out a lot of content. You know, we're now a year in. You know, obviously, we need to put more. We need to be more consistent. We know, but we both work 9 to 5s in a sense.
Still part of that system.
So still part of that system. So when we do get together, we try to put it out in bulk and put them out to you over a few weeks. But look, help us grow, man.
Yeah, shout out to all the Rumble viewers as well, because it's doing it's doing pretty well on Rumble. So if you're listening on Rumble, shout out. That's where you get all the episodes. All the banned episodes are on there.
You get them on Spotify as well. Spotify, funny enough, I'm surprised by Spotify. I thought Spotify would have pulled down a lot of our stuff, but they haven't. They've given us the freedom to say what we wanted. They've not pulled anything down from any of our episodes down, which is great to hear as well. But so if you're a Spotify person, I know I've got a mate of mine who really loves Spotify. So if that's where you like to get your podcasts, go check us out there. But like Treble just said, Rumble is a place. That's one place we do not get touched. So go over there and check us out, man. There's a lot of people, jumping on, leaving comments. It's nice to see. Leave a comment, send us a link, a topic you want us to cover. We'll look into it.
Give us your thoughts.
Maybe we'll do another episode on the back of your thoughts. So maybe, if you put enough questions down, we'll do some Q&A as well, man.
Exactly.
So just get involved. We're trying to build a community here. But like I said, as I always say, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Cypher.
I'm Treble.
And we out.
Nice one.